roughly 3.9%, almost equivalent to what we're experiencing now. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at an important moment in our economic history, and in the context of today's briefing, it is important to focus on the progress being made to put us firmly on a path of macroeconomic stability. We have since Q1, first quarter 2022, cut discretionary expenditures in our budget by 30%. In addition, we announced a number of expenditure measures to keep public spending in line with our tightening economic conditions, including restraints on purchase of new vehicles and a moratorium on non-statutory travel. As part of measures to shore up our reserves, improve exchange rate stability, and address some of the funding needs, the Ministry successfully worked on the $750 million Afri-Exim loan facility, which was received in August 2022. We thank Parliament for the accommodation in this also. The traditional cocoa syndication loan expected in the last quarter of 2022, which will promote the cocoa sector, will further help us build our foreign exchange reserves and provide a strong buffer for the cedi in the last quarter of the year. Additionally, the Bank of Ghana has introduced enhanced measures such as a special foreign exchange auction for bulk distribution companies and a gold purchase program to contain the depreciation of the cedi, which is now slowing down. So far, provisional fiscal development for January to July 2022 presented within the context of the 2022 budget revised deficit target of 2.6% of GDP and a primary balance of 0.4% of GDP show that 1. The overall fiscal deficit amounted to 31.1 billion, 5.3% of GDP, against a target of 31.2 billion, about 5.3% of GDP, and that the corresponding primary balance for the period was a deficit of 7.6 billion, 1.3% of GDP, against a target of 7.8 billion, 1.3% of GDP. Current year expenditure has also largely been contained owing to the operationalization of expenditure cuts announced since March. We are on course with expenditure rationalization efforts and will continue to enforce strict adherence to these measures across all MDAs whilst ensuring efficient delivery of public services. The Ghana Revenue Authority has intensified its efforts to shore up domestic revenue mobilization, particularly in relation to the enforcement of compliance measures. The increased visibility of GR officials at shopping malls and various commercial establishments and at our borders across the country is in pursuit of meeting our revenue objectives. Such exercises form part of an ongoing drive to ensure we take significant steps forward in remedying long-standing challenges with domestic revenue mobilization, indiscipline, corruption, and leakages. Of course, heightened tax compliance and increased tax audit exercises will continue to be complemented by policy initiatives that allow us to tap into a wider pool of taxpayers in the years ahead. Towards this, therefore, we are looking at areas around the e-levy to ensure its efficient implementation. Overall, our growth outturn of 3.4%, an impressive 4.8% in Q1 and Q2 of 2022 respectively, coupled with modest improvements in our fiscal position, suggests our economy is gradually on the upswing despite the numerous shocks we have faced over the past 2 years. These figures demonstrate that in spite of recent challenges, there has been economic growth, modest as the gains so far may be. This progress gives us a solid foundation to confront the challenges ahead. Undoubtedly, global risks remain on the horizon, including a strengthening US dollar and higher interest rates, which negatively affect external borrowing. This development is exerting enormous pressure on our balance of payment position, and thus the need for us to expedite engagement with the IMF. Within this context, government is finalizing its post-COVID-19 economic program as a domestic blueprint to engage the IMF. This document has already benefited from input from key stakeholders, including civil society, social partners, labor, employers, and faith-based organizations, academia, industry professionals, and the leadership of Parliament. Additional stakeholder engagements will be held to solicit further inputs for the program. Our economic program contains a set of time-bound structural reforms and fiscal consolidation measures to place our debt levels and fiscal accounts on a sustainable path over the medium term. The program is hinged on 7 pillars, namely debt sustainability, fiscal consolidation, strengthening monetary and exchange rate policies, building strong financial institutions, macro-critical structural reforms, maintaining peace and security, and economic growth and transformation. The IMF negotiations. The formal negotiations for a fund-supported program began on Monday, September 26, 2022, and discussions are advancing smoothly. The IMF mission will cover a period of 10 days, and in line with His Excellency the President's dialogue with the IMF Managing Director, Kristalina Georgieva, negotiations will be fast-tracked to ensure the key aspects of the program are reflected in the 2023 annual budget statement in November 2022. Government is committed to ensuring that a comprehensive package is negotiated with the aim of restoring and sustaining macroeconomic stability, ensuring durable and inclusive growth, and promoting social protection. As stated in our press release dated 26 September 2022, on the commencement of the IMF negotiations, having a sustainable debt path is a prerequisite for the IMF program. Therefore, the IMF, World Bank, and the Ghana team are currently undertaking a debt sustainability analysis to inform the program negotiations. In addition, the IMF and government team are working to update the medium-term macro-fiscal framework to inform IMF program design. Also, the government team and the IMF team are discussing policy measures and structural reforms proposed in our economic program aimed at addressing the economic challenges facing the country towards restoring and sustaining macroeconomic stability, fiscal and debt sustainability, as well as promoting durable and inclusive growth and social protection. Ladies and gentlemen, we simply have not reached any agreement with the fund on the parameters of any debt operation as we are in the process of completing the debt sustainability analysis. Government shall continue to actively engage all stakeholders in a clear and transparent manner as we seek to fast-track the IMF negotiation process. Ghana needs a viable domestic financial system to support its development program, especially in these 3 years with limited access to international capital markets. Therefore, everything must and will be done to protect our financial sector, and there must be room for a win-win conversation through extensive stakeholder engagement with both our domestic and external investors. Ghana has always had a collaborative approach with its partners, and we shall, I'm confident, come out of an historic arrangement. This is a government that protected the savings of 4.6 million Ghanaian depositors with the reform of the banking and financial sector. Even in our early days, we owe it to the economy and Ghanaians to keep protecting it. The sanctity and the well-functioning of the financial system is sacrosanct, and we need the support and trust of all Ghanaians to deliver this. Let us join hands to get this done. The Great Celtic Miracle in Ireland in the 80s was a result of such collaboration, especially with Labour, and we shall also be blessed with the Ghana Miracle. A 5-member committee consisting of prominent financial services professionals will lead extensive stakeholder engagement across all the key segments of the financial sector: banking, asset management, pensions, and insurance. The announcement of the committee members will be made in the coming days, and they will immediately get to work to engage key stakeholders in the financial services sector. Additional to ongoing engagements of civil society organizations, social partners, labor employers and faith-based organizations, academia, industry professionals, and the leadership of Parliament. We welcome all contributions to this great public debate, but we must be careful to build and not to tear down our nation. Ladies and gentlemen, we will leverage on our strengths to rebuild the economy, focusing on our productive sectors. Initiatives such as the Youth Start program that will provide 1 million jobs over the next 3 years will support entrepreneurs with loans to build their capacity to create more jobs and realize the present vision of a Ghana beyond aid and an entrepreneurial nation. The Development Bank of Ghana, which we capitalize at $750 million, is also supporting the private sector to invest in areas that will stabilize the economy over the medium to long term, with positive knock-on effects on job creation and economic growth. Taken together, we cannot lose sight of the remarkable progress we have made since the pandemic. And I believe that in the months to come, our robust policy approach response will help to considerably ease the challenges with inflation and the exchange rate pressures. I am extremely confident about where we'll land on this journey. We as a country have survived 142% inflation, yellow corn hysteria, mass exodus from our country, and more recently, a successful exit from the 2015 Extended Credit Facility IMF program. So let us go for the spirit of courage, for the Lord is with this nation. Let us not fear, for he who is of us is greater than all. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I remind each and everyone that Ghana is the only place we have. Its progress, its prosperity is our collective duty. We have overcome many challenges and risen to the occasion many times. This is another challenge which we must overcome. This too shall pass if we remain united and purposeful. Let us not forget that the battle is indeed the Lord's. As the book would said in Genesis 11:5, if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Thank you very much for your attention. God bless you. God bless our nation and make it great and strong. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the insightful presentation, Honorable Minister. If you are joining this press briefing, we are live on GTV and JoyNews. We are also streaming on Facebook at Ministry of Information and Ministry of Finance. It's so refreshing to note that, as Honorable Minister mentioned, in spite of recent challenges, we are recording economic growth. That was one point that was really encouraging, and I believe that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. It's now time for Q&A. If you have any question, this is the best time to ask. If you show by hand, we'll bring the microphone to you. You mention your name and media house and then proceed to ask your question. Okay. So we'll take the first question from here. If there are any hands, okay.
Please keep your questions brief and to the point, please. Thank you.
My name is Maxwell Adumbila from Graphic. Minister, I noticed the optimism around getting a program by December, but our history shows us that we normally would take about 7 months minimum to get a program, from time of announcement or engagement with the fund to the time we seal a program. What makes this time unique, and where is the optimism coming from that we can get a program by December, and even we can have the November budget coming from the IMF program? Thank you.
Okay, my name is Ebenezer Sabote from Joy FM. My first question is a bit related to my colleague's own. It has to do with the 5-member committee that you indicated that you'll be forming. I'm just thinking, is that committee not going to, the work of the committee not going to delay the program negotiations, since government is in a hurry, in a way, to get it done? That is one. And then secondly, I was thinking that you were going to give us some updates on the previous press conference that you had. You did mention some budget cutting measures that government was, undertaking, like the moratorium on purchase of new vehicles and stuff. I was thinking that you were going to give us an update on, at least let's know the impact of that savings that we have been able to, done to the economy. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Please, if there are any hands, this is the best time to pick the questions. Otherwise, I take that to be the last. Okay, Echo.
Thank you very much. My name is Echo from Bloomberg. One observation. I was happy to note that you said you're going to have more monthly briefs, and so that would help. It's very welcome. Thank you. Honorable, you also mentioned about this board that or committee that you have put together. I didn't quite get the exact work they are going to do. Is it also going to be part of the DSA analysis that is ongoing? And I want a bit more clarity on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. If there are any hands, we can pick two more. If not, we go to Honorable Minister. Okay, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much indeed, and welcome. I think the issue of the timing is that, you know, we've seen countries like Zambia, rightly you have mentioned, gone through a 2-year negotiation by getting into the common framework. And really, I don't think we as a country can afford that type of uncertainty over the period. And why are we hopeful that that will be different? Because in the discussions that I had with the managing director of the IMF, I mean, those were the specific issues that we talked about, how to fast track this so that we will get into organizing ourselves a lot better. But more importantly was the meeting between His Excellency the President and the Managing Director of the IMF in Rotterdam. And it was very, very clear in terms of the commitment that the fund showed. And she did say that they were determined to reach an agreement by end of the year, and that they've started constructive discussions with us. The team is here, and they are here on a mission, but as the mission chief told us, this is not a mission of 10 days, it is a mission through the end of the year. So there's increased intensity and acknowledgement that this must be done. With regards to the committee, coming from all of you, no, it will not delay. I mean, I think if I were to even listen to Bloomberg and Joy, you seem to have the answers for what this is going to entail. So within the confines of this period that we are in discussions, we will be able to come up. We expect them to be able to come up with input ideas as to where we should be going. I mean, the truth of the matter is that the variety of options, you know, we can all, you know, think of them. The issue is the idiosyncratic nature of our market and making sure that whatever we do goes to create, you know, a stronger financial ecosystem than before. And the best way to do it is to have a committee of experts working with the stakeholders. So that's good. With regards to the issue of the budget in terms of the 30% effect, goods and services are below, you know, target by 41.4% due to these cuts. Domestic capex below target by almost 2/3, primarily due to these expenditure cuts, and overall expenditures were below target by some 7%. So we are making a headway, and the question is, you know, in a sense, how much more adjustment can one do? I think the going forward I don't know, call Bloomberg, what did you ask? But I think, that also leads to sort of this critical period in our economy, and the question becomes, what do we as citizens or as social commentators or as journalists do? Because it's a very fragile period for our economy and global economy. The classical foundation of journalists, as you know, is to educate, to inform, and to entertain, in a sense. But I recall that I think it was P.A.V. Ansa who said that in countries developing with such fragility, the underpinning of all of this work that we do must be one that always remembers social cohesion. And if we trip beyond that, we are not sure whether we are educating, we are informing, or we are entertaining to the peril of the society we are in. So really caution to all of us as citizens, all of us as social commentators, the Bloombergs, etc., which really we must be very cautious about and really understand where P.A.V. Ansa was coming from, the need for social cohesion and to have the society we all would want to live in. Thank you very much.
Call, can you take the mic? Okay.
Thank you. Okay, let me take it again. We still have, as a nation, we have people who have invested in us. They have given us bonds and what have you. So sometimes there's a lag in the time that official information is made available, and then what the market is craving for at a critical time. This brings in a lot of analysts who say a lot of things. And so when it happens like that, and then we come to the officialdom and there's a lag, that vacuum will be filled. This is not for me as a person or even Bloomberg or any media house, but generally, I think that's why I recommended that monthly briefing is helping. If there's a way that more frequent, even on a maybe bi-weekly basis, there will be somebody to give briefs, it will help everybody. Then whatever the official position that Ghana has on any position is quickly mentioned and it is known out there. That is just just a comment. I didn't get clarity on the committee you are putting together. Is it fair to say that this committee is also going to help lead in the DSA analysis, and that are all options available on the table, different forms of restructuring if need be? You say we've not gotten there, we've not started yet. Help me with a line that clarifies this statement. We are putting together a committee to help do especially what, and what options are on the table.
Thank you very much, Cole. I mean, the issue of information, I know all journalists have relationships, official and unofficial, but for a major article to be predicated on what may be rumors, in a sense, makes it difficult for me to accept that the gap created that, because you have a nation at your behest, and it can trigger unintended consequences because of that. So, we have engaged all stakeholders in this issue, and some of them have written papers. We had some very spirited discussions. On Friday, we were in Koforidua, for example, with the ranking and chairs of the various subcommittees to talk about that. I think the financial subsector is a very special and important sector, and that is why we're encouraging that type of setup so that their input, however it happens, it will then be looked to incorporate in our discussions because it's important. I mean, the DSA is happening, what does it throw out? It will throw out a sense of fiscal adjustments. You know, you have a financing gap, and then you're going to split it between fiscal adjustment and your debt operations. So let us be informed by what the domestic financial system thinks is a way to go. I think you've heard enough of various options that can be done. There's an article from J.P. Morgan. We all know the variety of things that could be applied. But I think it's important for the industry players to lead this whole discussion so that we are well informed going forward. So that really would be their remit, so that there's a cohesive and comprehensive way in which we incorporate their views. But we are not predicting where things will go, and I think until the DSA is done, you know, everything else is really speculative, and that's what we do. But the one clarity, as you can see in the statement, is that we know about ensuring that we have a strong domestic investor community, which is you, me, everybody, and the banks, so that we can depend on it. They'll be confident about their assets being protected, and we'll go forward together to resolve these issues.
So my name is Esther Idu, and I'm coming from GBC News. So I'd like to know, how does the latest Fitch downgrade affect your negotiations with the IMF? And also, we have a budget timetable for 2023 to be in November. And how soon will the IMF discussions end so not to disrupt the budget timetable for this year?
Thank you for the question. Okay, the last question.
All right, I'm Isaac Adu from the Finder newspaper. Minister, from where you sit, how soon will we restore macroeconomic stability? How soon? Thank you.
The Finder, that's a big question. But I think it's really an excellent question. I mean, I think this is the 18th time that we are coming to the fund. And you look through the history of it, and you really in the end come to the realization that there are certain structural things that we must do, you know, as a country, if we are to move out of this in and out of the turnstile of the IMF. And I think we need to take a view on that. I mean, yes, we need to address our debt issues so that we can sustain and build to it. We need to look at the way in which our compensation is going, such that the ratios, you know, maybe come down to about 35% of our revenue, which means our revenue must considerably go up. If you break down our wages and salaries and compensation, you realize a majority of them earn very low incomes, and then we have, you know, maybe a much smaller minority, you know, topping up to make this huge burden. So how do we create more equality within that and get also more productivity to be able to change that equation? And then there are areas such as our earmark funds. I think we now have about 14 of them, which means that government's revenue are already quote-unquote earmarked before they are used, and we need to examine those. Those were some of the issues that came up in Koforidua of the parliamentarians. And then you look at our foreign exchange issues, and the question becomes, why do we have these retention agreements, and shouldn't all of the resources of these companies, oil or mining, go through the Bank of Ghana as a matter of fact to reduce these foreign exchange pressures? That's important. How do we move into an export-driven economy so that we are not importing food to the tune of $2 billion, but we are actually exporting food? That's important. Why do we not have our own gold refinery to support central bank's policy decision now to be buying gold? So those become important ways in which we will then change the structure of economy so we don't go back to what we are experiencing now. The program likely will be 3 years, and that's the period in which we expect to climb out of this in a strong way, to have a strong economy going forward. And with regards to timing, yes, the budget, God willing, should be read by November 15th per the rules. And so, yes, we are multitasking to ensure that all of these things will enable us to meet those deadlines. But we will do it. The issue of the Fitch downgrade, as you mentioned, is unfortunate. In their email to us, they referred to the Bloomberg article that influenced their decision, and so the downgrade has, well, it sort of further depressed the bonds on the international market, resulting in additional losses to investors. I mean, once we got downgraded to CCC, we are also expecting that the economic program that is going to be that is being worked on, which will be the sort of the basis for the IMF discussions, will then, help us to come back to some strong matrices to then be able to get our sovereign ratings revised over that period, and we are confident that it will. I think returning sort of access to the international capital market is going to take a bit of time, 2-3 years, and so during that period we'll work on our ratings also to be able to get there.
Minister, we'll take your final remarks.
Great. Well, let me really thank you for being here. These are difficult times, but really we are, in the throes of the discussions with the fund. Things are going really well in terms of where we want to land in 3 years. The analysis for the DSA, debt sustainability analysis, is rigorously going on, and that would inform us by the end of these 10 days as to what we are going to specifically do in various areas: fiscal adjustment, structural reforms, debt operations, etc. But let's rest assured that as is want for us to be a very collaborative society, we will work with our domestic investors as per through the committee, work with our external investors, and come up with a win-win solution that, as I mentioned, will be an historic solution that has not been seen before. We have gone through as a nation very difficult moments, and really we are very comfortable that it can be done. But going on this is also we reaching out and people reaching out to it, to us, to build in a constructive way, because that is really important for us to have that peace and harmony, speak that one language, and ensure that the Black Star is where it should be. So yes, I'm confident, difficult periods, but we have done it before, and the battle is indeed the Lord's. We will get there. Thank you.
Honorable Minister of State, Honorable Deputy Minister, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the press, thank you so much for making time for this important exercise. And as Minister mentioned, this will happen more frequently so that we get to interact more and inform Ghanaians. Thank you and good morning.
Minister Ken Ofori-Atta addressing the nation as to how what they're doing to bring the nation, the economy back on track. He admitted that we need to look at sustaining the debt in order to be able to build from there. He says that the debt sustainability analysis is currently ongoing rigorously with the IMF team to determine what ought to be done going forward. He again says, answering a question about when exactly we'll be out of the situation we are, he says the program with the IMF will take 3 years, and that is the period they expect that the economy will really be out of the current situation we are in. So they expect that it will take 3 years for us to really be on our feet again. He also mentioned that they have set up a 5-member committee to engage key stakeholders like the leadership in Parliament, like CSOs and the financial sector, to then be able to help come up with a very good strategy on how we can be out of where we are now. On how this whole situation will affect investors, he says the stakeholders will engage the domestic investors as well as the foreign investors to come out with a win-win situation such that it won't have any negative impact on anyone. He mentioned that the YouStart program is supporting entrepreneurs to create millions of jobs, as well as the Development Bank of Ghana, which is also supporting businesses to enhance growth in the private sector. So that has been the engagement with the press on how the government is working to fix the economy. This is still News Desk on the JoyNews channel. We'll take a quick break. We will be back with more. Stay with us.